Is Mark McGowan, do you think, deplatforming his political opponents? Will you be the judge? The Australian Christian lobby has been blocked from hiring publicly owned entertainment venues because they hold alternative views to the government. Last month, the Perth Theatre Trust told ACL Head Martyn Iles that he couldn't access the Albany Entertainment Centre and the Perth Concert Hall for events because he had, quote, politically motivated objectives. That's despite the Theatre Trust leasing venues to the WA Labor Party and candidates ahead of the March election. Martyn Iles joins me now from Canberra. Martyn, thank you for your time. This is an issue my viewers are absolutely hot to trot on. Why is there one rule for Mark McGowan and another rule for the Australian Christian lobby?
Well, Peter, it's worse than that. It's not even one rule for Mark McGowan and one for us. It's one rule for Mark and one for everybody else, because the policy that the government has literally adopted for all of its publicly owned venues, which are all the best venues in WA, says that if your views do not accord with the views of the state government, then you are cancelled. And these are publicly owned, taxpayer-funded venues, and yet the politics of the Labor Party is welcome. They've had heaps of Labor fundraisers, they've had heaps of different politically motivated events for the Labor Party, but the policy that was given to us literally was that because your views are not our views, you're cancelled. I don't expect that in a democracy. I sort of expect that from an authoritarian regime where they cancel people because you don't share their opinions. I mean, democracy is all about having different opinions.
I understand that the Perth Theatre Trust introduced the hire policy 2 days after McGowan won the election in March and then amended it after they knocked you back. Smells fishy to me. What's going on?
Well, we tried to book several venues in WA. We booked a bunch in Queensland with no problem. We had more than 7,000 people show up to the Truth of It live events there. Then we tried to go into WA and we were continually encountering problems with venues saying, no, sorry, we can't host you. And so we decided that we would press on this and say, look, could you please show us the policy you're relying on here? What actually is going on? And they came back to us and actually said to us, oh no, that's an internal working document. We can't give you that. And we sort of smelled a rat, and so we decided to push a lot harder. And eventually we got a document from the Minister's office, Minister Templeman, and as you note, it was actually modified. There's a modification history at the bottom of the page, and it said last modified 1st of July 2021, which was the day it was sent to us, and it said pages modified, all pages, and it just conveniently replicated exactly what we've been told on the phone by one of the venues, the Albany Entertainment Centre.
You are too smart for them. Is this policy lawful?
We think it is definitely not lawful because they have hosted political events there in the past, and so therefore they cannot discriminate against people who want to hire the public venue on the basis of political conviction or religious conviction. That's the Western Australia Equal Opportunity Act. But there's something else, which is for a government to actually go so far as to say everyone who disagrees with us is cancelled from all public venues is a huge problem, because the Constitution binds federal and state governments to not encroach upon the freedom of political communication amongst electors in a democratic society. And that's what this does. It says any political communication that isn't Mark McGowan's political communication is censored from key public venues, sometimes the only venue in town, like in Albany, for example, of that type, cancelled from those venues altogether.
Look, I remember it wasn't so long ago that you had prime ministers like Rudd and other Labor luminaries who would, crawl over each other to address your national conference, and particularly so in election years, because communicating with the Christian lobby supporters was something actively sought by both major parties. What's happened here that Labor now wants you silenced? What are the policies that they find so reprehensible?
Well, in Western Australia, I mean, I think the thing that is recent where we were on the other side of the issue to them was the euthanasia legislation, which they recently introduced. Other than that, what would there be? I mean, I guess we're a pro-life organisation. I guess we were on the no side of the same-sex marriage campaign when that was coming through. I mean, we hold a number of traditional Christian views on things. And my concern, of course, is that if that's the case, if because we hold a number of traditional Christian views on things, and we have an enormous number of supporters across the country, 220,000 at last count. If they're going to cancel that, then are they saying that, OK, Christians de facto are in that category of disagreeing with the government, so Christians are cancelled? I wonder whether they're a bit high on their own popularity at the moment. They don't feel like they need anyone, and they've forgotten about key constituencies.
Yeah, but just on euthanasia, I mean, the AMA would be against the government's view. On same-sex marriage, a Muslim group that might want to book those venues would be against the government's views. Where are you going to take this? What happens next?
I think that clearly it's a case of discrimination, and clearly it's a case of a government stepping outside of what it ought to be doing, particularly in a free democracy. I mean, we don't live under authoritarianism. We don't live in a one-party state. I mean, the Liberal Party couldn't even hire these venues. So I think something does need to be done about it, and we're looking very closely at legal options. We think they probably don't have a legal leg to stand on to go out and do this sort of thing, because their cancellation of us actually does represent, as you say, Peter, the cancellation of quite a few different groups, and we think that it needs to be challenged. So we are very much looking at our legal options. We've already sent off a letter, and there'll be more to come.
All right, well, please keep us posted. We're going to follow it hard here on Credlin. Martyn Iles, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter.